individually, as you rightly pointed out, as well as their relationship, the regional implications, and then the larger global question. So just wanted to add that. Otherwise, all the other points have been covered by your good selves. So.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, I wonder if we might, since we've got this discussion going, perhaps we could go on to answering some of the questions that have come in. And please do keep them coming in as well. We want to have as much of a full discussion with you as possible. So I think one of the questions that's come in has been about a concern that if we are putting tax on natural resources, won't this significantly increase the costs to operate for a business, and how do we deal with that? I have some thoughts on that, but do you want to take the question first, Femke?
Well, please give us your thoughts and I can expand on that.
Yeah, sure. So I think the idea of this tax shift is, first of all, we say we have to act now, but it can be gradual. So those taxes can be incremental. It will take careful planning, but for example, as has been done by some governments, I think the Swedish government, for their carbon taxes, they have set the rate of increasing rate of carbon taxes 4 or 5 years into the future. So the increase initially is not so great as to disrupt the business, and it also having that forward view would already help businesses to plan ahead. And certainly with the use of tax revenues to reduce taxes on employment, that will reduce also some of the cost impacts for the business. And we are talking about changing business models now. So it's so the expectation would be implementing this tax policy over time. Businesses will be pushed to change the way that they operate, partly also to keep the costs of operation at a level that they can sustain, and also hopefully ensuring then that their impacts on society is also a level that society can sustain.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so to add to that, the concept is based on to be a shift. So it's supposed to be budget neutral for government. The idea is not to increase taxes, but to both raise taxes and use the revenues. This will look different in different countries again. So in countries where labor taxes are very high, it will be a reduction, as I explained in the European Union case study. In other countries where labor taxes are low or non-existent or hardly existent, there will be another way to use the revenues in order to fight poverty, etc. So this is what we partly illustrate in the Bangladesh case study. And there will be lots and lots of different options, of course, because there is no silver bullet. But these are scenarios to illustrate their impact. So when a set of policy measures is budget neutral for government, it doesn't mean it's budget neutral for each and every actor in the economy. So if there's, for example, a price on pollution, the bigger polluters will have to pay more in this scheme, and the ones who are already operating in a very clean way, they won't need to pay for much more for their operations. So there is a big difference between different sectors, and there is a big difference within sectors, because we've done a study on how a tax shift would impact different businesses and sectors, and what we found was that even within sectors, players have a very different can have a very different pollution level. So there will be competitors, one against the other, who will have one might have a much larger, for example, carbon intensity than another company, or a larger water intensity than another company. So when we look at, for example, the example of Heineken building this circular factory in Mexico in order to save water, if there is a water price introduced, this company will have a competitive advantage over those companies that have not yet taken steps to reduce their water use. And this is exactly what is needed in the world today. The incentives do need to support and create a level playing field between users of resources, which there isn't right now. So as currently, if there is no price on pollution, there is no level playing field, because the polluters don't pay, and the ones who try to do their best to reduce their, for example, water usage, do need to pay, because they need to invest in R&D, they need to invest in new factories. They might not set their location exactly where they want, because they want to not yet, they understand that they don't need, can't be depending on water scarcity in future. So there's a lot more effort going into a sustainable business model than into the regular linear business model. So, and this is exactly what we're talking about when we say we should have the polluter pay and use the revenues to lower either the cost of labor or labor taxes, or use the revenues wisely to support social development as well as innovation. So yes, the question is very correct. I mean, there will be companies that will have to pay more and have a higher production cost. This will differ among sectors, so there will be more sectors that are much more polluting than others. Those will have a higher price to pay, but that is logic in a world where we don't want to externalize these costs. And then there are always opportunities for business to shift to different business models where, or products where they don't pollute as much or use as much water as they used to. So yes, this requires a lot of effort, and it's probably for some business quite hard. But then again, you know, evolving is in the DNA of entrepreneurs. It's what, you know, it's what they do best. It's adapting to changing circumstances in the market. And this will be another challenge to adapt to changing circumstances, but it will also provide them with opportunities. For example, the leapfrogging examples that I just gave, with regard to the solar homes in Bangladesh, for example, or the electric buses in China, there will be a much better business case for electric buses and solar homes once there is a price on carbon or on the use of fossil fuels. So it will be, there are literally thousands of business leaders just jumping, waiting for these business cases to be okay, so that they can claim the market and grow. So yeah, it does change the dynamics in business and competitiveness. There will be winners and there will be losers, but if we only focus on the losers, we will forget about all the winners and about the local and regional companies that have business opportunities once there is this shift in incentives. So I hope I've answered some, you know, part of the question. I mean, it's not straightforward, and it's what is an interesting development is that, you know, before there was a very, you know, monolithic interest in the business community. So if you are, let's say, an oil company, your sole interest is to sell oil. If you are a service company, your only purpose is to sell hours or time of your clients or of your employees. That is changing. Business models are shifting already. Within the portfolio of an oil company, there will be by now investments in clean energy. So the interest in clean energy, for example, is not just for the small businesses, but every single sector is already moving into that field. So it's not that there is a single interest. It's much more dynamic and complex. And what we do in this scheme is to create a level playing field between different types of users of resources, and then unleash, the potential and the development of businesses to come up with these smart solutions and turn these business cases into economic growth. So Yen-Pei, if you maybe have another question.
Yes, I believe we have someone who has a comment in the question that he wanted to introduce verbally. Harun, would you be able to unmute him?
Yes, the name of the participant is Mia Ahmed Mahmood, Ehsan Mahmood. So Ehsan, if your mic is ready, I'm going to unmute you and then you can share your perspective with the participants. Okay, you are
Hi.
unmuted.
Hello, everyone, and hello to panelists as well as all the participants. I hope you can hear me.
Very well.
Thank you. The topic is very interesting. However, how I look at it is a bit different. And as you guys are experts, so I want to have your opinion on that. As mentioned by Femke, Yen-Pei, and Omer, there are a lot of challenges, limitations in implementing this. So we definitely need to have a carbon tax to have a sustainable future for all the businesses to grow. However, what I think is putting a tax, and when we say a carbon tax, then another question is what will happen to the organic taxes. So, okay, if we keep carbon tax separate, and our objective is to live in harmony with the nature, so that our lifestyle is basically sustainable. So what I think is that instead of putting a tax, what we do, because there can be so many problems with the tax, like we have a specific attitude towards taxes, then tax is not sustainable because as the climate change is increasing every year, so maybe you need to increase the tax rate every year if you really want to have the objective which you want to achieve. So you need to increase the tax rate. And then who can guarantee that whatever you collect from these taxes will be actually spent on where it needs to be spent, for example, to neutralize the carbon impact, basically. So this is also another question. So I just think it from a point of view of a stock exchange, let's say, let me give you an example, where there are organizations who are doing some conservation work. Let's say I'm planting trees, I am providing solar, and then there are standards organizations who can certify that, for example, you know that when you have an air travel, so you can calculate that how much of the carbon you have emitted. So if I am providing solar, if I am planting trees, so this can be calculated that how much carbon I have basically saved. So whoever is doing the carbon emission actually has to purchase those carbon credits from me. And the good thing in this model is that the impact is very direct. Organic taxes will stay there. You will no longer call it a tax. Whoever is doing more damage will have to pay more, and you can just imagine it as a new industry, and from our SDGs it will directly going to affect the poverty level, because most of these projects which a company like XYZ company who is providing solars, planting trees, other sustainable practices, so it will directly affect the people in the rural areas who are basically mostly all over the world who are living below the poverty line. So it will directly affect them. Then the impact will be very much direct with very immediate effects. And the third thing is you just think it like because a separate market, like for example, now Coca-Cola has a specific environment footprint every year which can be calculated based on some standards. Yes, there is a lot of research needs to build those standards to make everyone agree to that. However, once you calculate that impact, then to continue operating, actually they have to buy those carbon credits because before they can go ahead to their next financial year, and then these costs will directly be absorbed into the product. The challenges will remain same: how to implement, what to do with the increasing cost, everything. But as you said, like, this is the right time to take action, and this is now when we have to take action. So this is just a broad, I don't want to take a lot of time. So this is how I think, instead of putting a carbon tax, to deal and achieve the same objective but from another route.
Wow,
Thank you very much for this
that's quite a
question.
question.
Do you want to go ahead with your thoughts, Omer,
Yeah,
Femke, or?
I'll quickly just share my thoughts before handing over to Femke, who is really the expert of the report and can share her thoughts. Well, I think what the gentleman is suggesting, though it sounds good, is fundamentally different in terms of the goals that are being addressed. I mean, as a force for good is coming from a very different angle. It's shifting the entire game plan. It's shifting the entire structure. It's proposing that the entire focus should shift, instead of labor-oriented taxes, to the taxes based on the consumption of natural resources. That's a fundamentally different model to the one that my friend here, the gentleman, was suggested, where the existing labor intensive and all the taxes can remain, and an additional industry can be created where the carbon taxes can come in a different form. Carbon credits can be brought, and then you can pollute as much as you want, as long as you are able to pay for the cost, and then you can just build that in within your business plan. It has been advocated elsewhere. I've read quite a few papers on that proposals. Some of the industries and countries are already running the pilots of those, but I believe it is fundamentally different from what has been suggested in this report and what the goals and objectives are. So over to you, Femke.